Global Lords. Start as a Desert Lord. Chapter 11. After Li Cha read the post several times, he opened the trading market. Search. Resource treasure, spring water. But to his disappointment, there was none. Then, after searching for several similar words in a row, all came up with a vast expanse of whiteness. It seems that there are still too few people who can get 3-star treasure chests at this stage, and they may not be able to open similar resource treasures. After closing the market, I found the post again. After giving himself the name Chingcho, he started a private chat. Chingcho, brother, I just saw your post. Do you have any idea of selling spring water fragments? The message was sent, and a response was quickly received. What about your Italian gun? Do you want it? How many resources can you give? Seeing the name, the corner of Li Cha's mouth twitched. Chingcho, the initial resources are too precious, I can't get much, but I just hunted a wild wolf. What about your Italian cannon, wild wolf? It's the kind that's not much bigger than a dog. What's the use of that thing? Li Cha went directly to the residents who were still busy, and chose a medium-sized wild wolf. Ding, do you sell desert wolf corpses? Please set the price. 100,000 gold coins. After the selection, the desert wolf in front of him disappeared directly outside. Li Cha reopened the chat channel and sent a message. Chingcho, I've already put the wild wolf on the shelves. You can go to the trading channel to search. Desert wild wolf is priced at 100,000 gold coins. Not long after the message was sent, the other party replied. Where's your Italian cannon? The 3-star elite wolves can kill me. I've been blocked by a group of 1-star elites, how the did I get the farmer's lair? What? Boss, what level is your troop lair? Chingcho, let's talk about a deal. Your Italian cannon, it can be traded, but one is not enough, and wolves are pack animals, you must have killed more than one. Chingcho, my territory is also very short of food, and it is impossible to trade too much, and what you have is just a piece of debris. I don't know when it will be synthesized. If it is too expensive, forget it. The other party didn't reply for a long time. Just when Richard thought that guy didn't want to deal, the other party appeared again. What about your Italian cannon? Boss, you hunted desert wolves, and you are willing to exchange precious food for fragments of the resource and treasure spring water at this point in time. Your territory is in the desert, right? Li Cha raised his brows. Just as he was about to say don't talk nonsense, the other party sent a message. I understand that a piece of spring water treasure can't be exchanged for much food, but I wonder if you are interested in this thing. Sand Jujube Forest Resource Treasure. Rating: 1 star. Scope: 10 acres. Features: it must be planted in the desert, requires sufficient water for irrigation, and matures once a month. Introduction: a resource treasure exclusively for the desert. Quote. Li Cha opened his eyes. A jujube forest. Ripe once a month. And this is not a treasure fragment like spring water, you can use it directly after you get it. Chingcho, a 3-star treasure chest can still open 2 resource treasures. What about your Italian cannon? Who said you can open 2? 1 treasure chest can open the same thing. I opened 2 treasure chests. Chingcho, is this guy lucky too? How long did it take to get 2 3-star treasure chests? Let's hang up. What about your Italian cannon? Boss, are you not interested in this treasure? I don't want much, as long as 30 wild wolves are enough. Chingcho, aren't you awake? Resources and treasures seem precious, but they are huge pits for every desert lord. How much water does the jujube consume every day? How many people can bear it? And it's too slow to mature. Don't you know what a month means? Not only do I need to spend energy on nursing, but also delay the progress of the development of the territory. There will be more similar treasures in the future, and the price will definitely be lower. Now this thing doesn't have much value to me, let's talk about the transaction of spring water fragments. After reading this sentence, the other party fell into a long silence. Li Cha didn't respond anymore and just waited for the guy to speak. For him, the jujube can ripen in a month at 10 acres, which is an irresistible temptation for him. If you can get the hand, it means that the City of Dusk has a stable source of food. As for investment, isn't this nonsense? There is no gain from investment. But the essence of negotiation is not to show your cards. Whoever has the smallest needs can take the initiative. And the other party's post has exposed his extreme lack of food. Now, the initiative is in his hands. It is only the first day of the game, and it is not easy to find a suitable seller from the desert camp. Your Italian gun? No, this is something from a 3-star treasure chest. It's a lot of money. I've already put it on the shelves. You can buy it yourself. Opened the trading market and found jujube and spring water fragments. 1-star treasure in the Sajub forest, 5,000 units of food or 30 desert wolves. Fountain fragment, 1-star treasure, sells for 1,000 units of food or 10 desert wolves. Li Cha Yil, little boy, are you fishing in front of me? I really thought it was fishing, bro. Directly closed the forum. Take the desert wolf off the shelves, let the residents continue to deal with it, and ignore that guy. The other party even exposed his underwear, and now it is him who is fishing. The residents didn't finish their work until it was dark. After dealing with more than 20 wolves, all of them were exhausted. A middle-aged man in a short robe entered the Lord's mansion with a respectful face after confirming that the food was cooked. But under the gaze of the empty eyes of the mummy guard, he didn't dare to step into the hall at all, he only dared to shout in a low voice. Lord, good night. We have already cooked the food, please have your meal. When Li Cha heard a somewhat uneasy voice from outside the door, he couldn't help crying and laughing. Get up and walk out of the Lord's mansion. In the open space outside the gate, hundreds of residents looked at the bubbling meat in the cauldron eagerly. The smell made the child almost cry. Li Cha, who had not eaten for a day, also moved his index finger. After seeing him appear, the residents turned their heads reluctantly this time and saluted. Lord, good night. Lord. Looking at the crowd who wanted to put their eyes into the pot, he smiled slightly. He took a few steps forward and glanced around. Said loudly. My people, today is the first day you joined the City of Dusk, and it's a day of commemoration. Because today you have become a member of Dusk City and my people. From this moment on, all of us will share weal and woe with Twilight City. In the future, this land will be full of hope because of our joint efforts. The life that each of you dreams of will be realized with our efforts. Remember today, in the future, you will be proud of it. Now, eat. The last sentence immediately excited the residents. Long live the Lord. Praise you, great Lord. Thank you for your gift. After some excitement, it was a pleasant meal time. The internal organs and bones of more than 20 wild wolves made everyone have a good time. Everyone got a big bowl, and there will be 2 beautiful meals tomorrow. The same is true of Richard. Although there are not many seasonings, the wild wolf meat is too delicious. Simple salt can make it delicious. After a comfortable meal, he returned to the Lord's mansion leisurely. The night is too dangerous, he has no plan to go out, safety is the most important thing. When he entered the hall, he suddenly found 2 17 or 18-year-old girls with ruddy complexions and blonde hair waiting for him. After inquiring, I found out that the old man Karu sent him to serve him. Are you taking this to test the cadres? I thought about it before I could laugh or cry. I have already crossed over, and the Lord's life is rotten in nothing at all. Under their care, he finished washing up, but when the other party shyly offered to warm the bed, he still strictly refused. On the one hand, the Harmonious Army is the main 2 girls who did not meet his aesthetic standards. He prefers Oriental girls with charm. The 2 girls turned their heads one step at a time and left with regret. This is an opportunity to reach the sky in one step. They didn't grasp it. It's a pity. The next morning, Li Cha woke up. After washing up, he remembered something and opened the forum. The next second, hundreds of private messages appeared. 6 o'clock in the evening. What about your Italian cannon? Why don't you buy it? 7 o'clock in the evening. Where's your Italian gun? Boss, where's the man? 8 p.m. What about your Italian gun? Is it expensive? I can discuss it with us. 9 page M. What about your Italian gun? How about 25 wild wolves? I'll change the price now. 10 page M. What about your Italian gun? Boss, I was wrong. Don't ignore me. 20 heads, 1 price. It's absolutely necessary. 11 in the evening. You reading www.uakanshu.com. What about your Italian gun? Boss, reply to me, I'm really in a hurry. 12 o'clock in the evening. What about your Italian cannon? I'll call your brother a success, 20 can't be missing. 1 o'clock. Your Italian cannon. Dad, just buy it. Those refugees will destroy my food tonight. I have promised them to solve the food problem tomorrow. I can't believe it. 2 in the morning. Your Italian gun. Dad, get up tomorrow and get back to me when you see the information. 6 in the morning. Your Italian cannon. Dad, please, buy it now. If those residents can't see the rice in the pot today, I'm afraid they will rebel. 7 in the morning. Your Italian gun. Grandpa, are you awake? Those residents are already up. Please answer me a word. 8 in the morning. Your motherfooler's Italian cannon. Ancestor, 15 wild wolves. If you want, buy them immediately, not much to say. 9 in the morning. Your Italian gun. Old ancestor, I'm going to die. Those guys have been asking about food, I can't be fooled anymore. They said they would leave today without food. Those with big shoulders and round waists really want to do it, my peasants can't handle it. Ancestor, help. Quote. Li Cha was dumbfounded when he saw the other party's message. This guy is also superb. Dare to fish without a whole card. Open the market. At this time, the price of the one-star resource treasure sold by the other party, Sandjujube Forest, has been reduced to 2,000 units of food or 15 desert wolves. The spring water treasure is sold for 500 units of food or 3 desert wolves. The guy obviously couldn't hold it anymore. But Rao is like this, and no one cares. Who at this point in time has excess grain to buy such a tasteless treasure? He also searched the forum for posts on the Jujube Forest and spring water fragments, and found that they were all made by your Italian cannon. He opened it and glanced at it, suddenly amused. Come on, sell the precious strategic treasures from the 3-star treasure chest. The Jujube Forest is 10 acres, and it matures once a month. As long as you buy it, you can harvest a batch of food every month. The best choice for desert lords. The cornerstone of hegemony. Fountain treasure fragments. As long as you gather 3 fragments, you can get a spring eye. Desert lords who are short of water must not miss it. These 2 treasures can be found by searching the trading market. Your Italian cannon is nothing to brag about. The reply below is very interesting. First floor. Are you crazy? A broken treasure, you sell 2,000 units of food. And it can only be grown in the desert. Don't you have a count of the price of the food now? Second floor. As a lord who randomly came to the desert, I just want to say that the lord is mentally retarded. The Sand Jujube Forest is really good, but the introduction is very clear that it needs sufficient water. Who planted this Nima? Not to mention the outrageous price of selling 2,000 units of food. Do you know what the concept of 15 desert wolves is? That is a level 2, 3-star gregarious monster with potential elite. Who has the skills to kill 15 desert wolves on day 1? Why can't you be so bullish? Third floor. I really want these treasures, can you make it cheaper? I gave out 300 units of food for the Jujube Forest, which I got by killing a wild camel, and I couldn't bear to eat it. Fourth floor. These 2 treasures are so expensive to sell. They look good, but the eggs are useless. Wouldn't it be nice to have this resource in exchange for something else? Fifth floor. Your Italian gun will argue a few words at the beginning, and then you will be sprayed purely, and you will no longer dare to retort. No wonder he's so fiery. This guy was blasted by the sand sculpture player. They still like poisonous tongues so much, and they haven't changed in another world. After thinking about it, he sent a message back to the guy. Chingcho. The desert wolves harvested yesterday have been processed, you are late. The other party responded instantly. Your Italian gun. Ancestor, you can be considered to have appeared. Don't bluff me, I've asked. There are at least 7 or 8 desert wolves at the same time. Such a big head, even if it is skinned, boned and gutted, several heads can produce at least 2,000 units of meat. You can't eat it all in one day. Just buy it. Chingcho. I can only produce 800 units of processed desert wolf meat. Where's your Italian gun? Sazao Grove can only sell for so little. It's too cheap. Chingcho. Who told you that it was 800 of the Jujube Forest? I was talking about 2 treasures of 800. Where's your Italian gun? You are cruel. But I will never give in. Even if I die, I won't sell it. Chingcho. Listen to me and finish. What about your Italian gun? Hey, big brother, say it. Little brother, listen. Chingcho. I use 800 units of meat to buy your 2 treasures. After half a month, I will continue to pay 800 units of food, and I will pay another 800 units after a month. Your motherfooler's Italian gun is also stunned. Brother. Is this also for installment payments? Chincho. 800 units of wolf meat is enough for you to support for a while. This is meat, not rice or flour. And I don't have much food in my hand, and there are hundreds of people to support, so I don't have so many resources to trade with you. If you don't agree, then forget it. I have food in my hands, and 20 billion people, can't they buy similar resources and treasures? Quote. Your mother's Italian cannon is in a hurry. He is still waiting for rice to cook. If those refugees run away, his territory will be abolished. No, big brother. Okay. I agree, but we have to sign a contract. Chincho. No problem. The system contract is signed once with 100 gold coins, which can guarantee the interests of both parties. If one party breaches the contract, it will be punished by the breach of contract negotiated in the contract. After Richard signed the contract with the other party, he went to the warehouse to get 800 units of wolf meat. And the 2 resource treasures that were opened from the 3-star treasure chest also appeared in his hands smoothly. Only spent 800 units of meat in exchange for 2 resource treasures, which was a profit. As for the remaining 1,600 units of food, the shortage of food will inevitably be resolved over time. In other words, the 800 units of meat after half a month is not the high value that cannot be bought now, and the purchasing power will depreciate. Li Cha carefully looked at the 2 resource-based treasures in his hand. The jujube forest is the appearance of a jujube seed, exuding a faint fluorescence. The spring water fragment is 1/3 the size of a palm, like a broken crystal, but it does not cut a hand. Sand jujube forest resource treasure. Level 1 star. Range 10 mu. Characteristics: it must be planted in the desert, requires sufficient water for irrigation, and matures once a month. Introduction: a resource treasure exclusively for the desert. Spring water resource treasure. Level 1 star. Water output. Small. Status: incomplete, 1/3. Characteristics: after being placed, reading www.uikanshu.com will form a spring water that will not dry up. Introduction: fragments of resource treasures can only be used when they are complete. Holding the Shazalan treasure, a message immediately surged in his mind. Select an area and place the seeds of the jujube forest in the central area, and 10 mu of jujube will grow out in a very short time. Li Cha is in a good mood. With this jujube forest, it means that Dusk City has a stable source of food. Stability is more important to the territory than anything else. But the biggest problem is still unresolved. Water source. The jujube forest needs sufficient water for irrigation. The small well in Dusk City cannot even supply the food and drink of hundreds of people, so it is impossible to plant at all. We have to find a way to find other fragments of the spring. Since it's a 1-star resource treasure, and it's still a shard, the chance of opening it must be high. Although the number of 3-star treasure chests is rare, there are 20 billion players. It's normal for a guy who is as lucky as Italian Cannon to open 2 treasure chests to have 300,000 to 500,000. If you have money, you can make a grinder. As long as you have enough resources, you can put a bounty on it, and let 20 billion players do things for me. After clarifying the goal, Richard immediately asked Karu to call and instruct him. Today I'm going to patrol around the territory, looking for resource points and edible prey. You arrange for the residents to clean up the territory and not go out. The territory is absolutely safe this week, and no monsters, not even giant dragons, can step into the territory. Quote. Richard told Karu to put the food and water prepared in advance into the system space. At the same time, I opened the system map and watched it carefully. Today, we will scan the map starting from the logging yard in the west, and we will explore it in a clockwise direction in the next few days. After making a decision, he left the territory with 14 mummies. Although this is the second time to walk in the desert, Richard has already gotten used to it obviously yesterday, and his face is much calmer. Silent, vast, and majestic, the desert is always so spectacular, making people feel heroic. It was still early, and the yellow sand had not been scorched by the sun. With a goal and a direction, the group is quite fast. He passed by the lumber mill soon, and the long-armed hard laborers were already working hard. Li Cha didn't stop, and continued to explore. But less than 5 minutes after leaving the logging field, he suddenly heard a buzzing sound in his ear. Turning his head to look, he saw a few black and yellow bees passing by him. Are there bees in the desert? She looked a little surprised. However, those bees were very fast and flew away in the blink of an eye. He didn't have a chance to find out. Shaking his head, he didn't worry too much, and continued on. But after walking for less than 10 minutes, the mummy who was exploring the road ahead suddenly stopped and stepped back. He waved his hand to the rear. There was nothing in the desert that blocked his line of sight, and Richard immediately noticed the difference. After confirming that no enemy launched an attack, stepped forward to check the details. He came to the mummy who warned him and climbed up a small sand dune 10 meters high in front of him under their signal. Richard leaned forward and looked forward. On the sand dunes 100 meters away, 3 teams of field troops appeared in front of me. These humanoid beings have rock-like muscles all over their bodies, and the bulges one by one are particularly conspicuous. Bodybuilders would be ashamed and angry in the face of this kind of life. The body is 2 meters high, and every move is filled with a terrifying sense of power. The back was slightly curved, with 3 rows of dagger-like spikes growing, looking hideous and terrifying. What's even more surprising is that swarms of bees are flying around these strange beings. The bee he saw just now obviously left here. Knack Troll. Level 4. Potential, Elite 3 stars. Skill, solid as a rock, D grade. The body is as hard as a rock, can ignore the bite of ordinary beasts. Full strength heavy attack, E rank. The next attack can explode 200% of the power after charging. Rock body, class E, will not die unless decapitated. Racial talent, it has an exceptionally strong defense, which cannot be pierced by ordinary weapons. Bond, B. The troll feeds on honey, raises more than 3 nests of desert bees, and automatically obtains 10 experience points every day. If you raise more than 5 nests of desert bees, you will automatically get 20 experience points every day. If you raise more than 10 nests of desert bees, the desert bees will give birth to desert queens and produce golden honey, which can increase the potential of the Knack Troll. Introduction, I love honey, la la la. Li Cha's eyes widened. Good guy, there is such a wonderful field army. He looks so hideous, he actually feeds on honey, and in this vast desert, where do those bees go to collect honey? The world is so big, it's amazing. After taking a few glances at the fetters of the Knack Troll, he suddenly became interested. You can gain experience by swallowing honey, no wonder these guys have reached level 4. I wonder if these bees can be removed. Thinking of the sweetness of honey, Li Cha was heartbroken. Although it feels weird to raise bees in the desert, but even wild monsters can be raised, why can't he? He still doesn't believe it. But the problem is that the opponent has 3 teams. A squad has 10 people, a squadron has 10 squads, a brigade has 10 squadrons, and a regiment has 10 squads. This is the basic troop structure of Era of Radiance, in decimal, which is simple and easy to remember. In the face of such a large number, the potential is as high as 3 stars for elites, and it is still an army known for its defense. Li Cha felt a bit tricky. Although mummies are strong, it is still a question whether they can break defenses. The strength in our hands is still weak. After accumulating some resources, we need to build the second unit's nest. With his thoughts scattered, Li Cha took another look at the attributes of the mummy. Corpse bandage, E level, reduces physical damage by 30%. The bandage has the curse of undead. The infected person will fall into a weak state. All attributes will be reduced by 20%. If not treated, they will die due to the curse. If you don't get treatment, you will die because of the curse. After whispering softly, his eyes gradually lit up. The opponent's defense is amazing. I'm afraid it won't work with normal methods. Although the desertification skill is strong, it can only last for 5 minutes. If you attack violently, if you can't solve the battle within 5 minutes, you may suffer a strong counterattack from the opponent, and the situation will be uncontrollable by then. Why don't you try this passive? A group of field troops, how can they expel the curse of mummies? The opponent's defense is strong, that's physical defense, and you can't see any magic resistance in the attribute. Thinking of this, Richard made up his mind. He has always been an activist, and he does what he says. Not to mention the honey that made him ticklish, the high experience gained from hunting knack trolls is also worth a try. And maybe you can find some treasures inside. Richard took the mummy to circle around the dune for half a circle, and slowly approached the Nake monster from the downwind. Wait until the distance is right. Let the mummy turn on the desertification directly. 14 mummies were integrated into the desert, leaving no trace. After a while, the Nake troll, who was basking in the sun lazily in the bushes, suddenly heard a rustling sound. But these honey-eating wild monsters are far less vigilant than desert wolves. It wasn't until the mummy's body climbed up from the ground, and even passed through their body, that these hideous-looking trolls woke up and got up one by one roaring. Bombard the mummy's body with their fists the size of sandbags. After charging, the fist even hit a sonic boom. But no matter how terrifying the attack was on the mummy, it was like being hit in the sand. They could only feel a slight obstruction, and then passed through the mummy's body. Instead, because of the direct contact with the mummy, their rock-like skin turned blue. The powerful momentum suddenly dropped a lot. The mummy's curse takes effect. But the weaker the body, the crazier the knack troll. 3 teams of Nake trolls swarmed up and launched a storm-like attack around the 14 mummies. The mummy also fought back mercilessly. But they can easily tear apart the body of the desert wolf's claws and attack the troll of the Nake. UU read www.uakanshu.com can only leave a white scratch. Unable to break defense. The knack troll with full point defense is much more difficult to deal with than the desert wolf. After 2 full minutes, the mummy confirmed that all the trolls were infected with the curse, and the body quickly melted into the sand under the roar of the other party. Disappeared without a trace. No matter how roaring and angry the knack trolls are, they can't stop the mummy after the desertification. After the mummy left, these trolls madly attacked the ground with their fists. Smashed out giant pits. Splashes of yellow sand all over the sky. The desert bees flying in the air felt the wrath of the troll, and also made a buzzing roar. After the mummy climbed out of the sand, Richard immediately took them away from this area. Came to a sand dune hundreds of meters away and carefully observed the movements of the Nake troll. The knack troll stirred up the sand in rage, and after venting violently, they gradually regained their calm when they saw that the enemy had not appeared for a long time. But the blue breath on his body did not disappear. On the contrary, there is a gradual deepening trend. But the knack troll's body is too strong. There was no noticeable change for a while. After Li Cha observed for a long time, a smile appeared on his face. It's planned. These trolls really have no means to exorcise the curse of the undead, and now it is enough to wait for the curse to swallow them. But with the physique of the knack troll, I'm afraid it won't work for a few hours, so there's no need to waste time. After confirming that there was no accident, Richard continued to explore west with the bandaged mummy. He is quite looking forward to what will happen next. After leaving the area where the knack troll was, Richard became more careful. The original Pathfinder mummies have changed from 4 to 8, and they are scattered in groups of 2 in a fan shape. Each group is about 300 or 400 meters away from him, and can be recalled immediately in case of an accident. This greatly increases the search scope. It didn't take long for this strategy to pay off. Ding! Your troops were attacked by a group of desert goblins. Richard had instructed in advance that the mummy who encountered the enemy did not fight the enemy, but quickly evacuated. He immediately gathered the scattered mummies. After Li Cha and other enemies approached, he also saw the appearance of these field troops that attacked the mummy. He is about 1.5 meters tall, with a dry wooden stick in his hand. His body is greenish with yellow spots, and he is very close to the desert. The face is extremely ugly, like the dough that has just been kneaded fell on the uneven ground, and then was stepped on. Desert Goblin. Level 2. Potential, normal 1 star. Skill, wah wah yelling, by shouting to boost your morale. Racial characteristics, bullying the soft and afraid of the hard, greedy for life and fear of death. Fetters, oil on the soles of the feet. The number of people is 10% less than the enemy. The escape speed is increased by 20%. The number of people is 20% less than the enemy. The escape speed is increased by 30%. Introduction. Don't come here, I'll run away if you come again. This property is absolute. Li Cha couldn't help laughing and crying. I thought it was a great character. This group of small green-skinned beings were madly chasing the 2 mummies with wooden sticks. The number of opponents exceeded 4 teams, which seemed quite impressive. However, when they saw a large number of enemies gathering, the screaming charge immediately slowed down. Seeing this, Li Cha waved his hand for fear that these guys would run away. Kill them. The mummy came out of the cage like a tiger. An extremely hoarse roar came out of his throat, and the vague feeling sent chills down the spine. The green-skinned desert goblin was stunned for a moment, turned his head to look at his companions, and found that he was several times more than the other, and his morale was immediately boosted. Woe screamed and rushed up. The mummy who rushed into the desert goblin first directly started the unparalleled mode. The shriveled fingers are now sharper than a razor. When waving, those goblins were like lambs lining up to die. One claw. Under the powerful force, even if the desert goblins use wooden sticks to block, the only outcome is that the wooden sticks break and their bodies are torn to pieces. Puff. Blood splattered and scattered on the ground. One body after another fell to the ground. In just one round, there were only 2 teams of desert goblins left from the 4 teams. Seeing the miserable appearance of their companions, the rest of the desert goblins were immediately frightened, and they didn't even care about running away, so they knelt down and kowtowed. Great existence. We are willing to surrender to you and become your humble servants. Ding! The desert goblins were defeated by your army. You gained 40 experience points, which is due to your strength. The remaining desert goblins are willing to surrender to you. Do you accept it? Li Cha saw that the desert goblins were like paper and shattered when they were smashed, and the corners of his mouth twitched. After thinking about it, although these guys are greedy for life and fear of death, they are useless in battle, but they can still be used for work or as cannon fodder. After choosing to accept, he waved his hand and stopped the mummy. Seeing the gods of death around him stop, the desert goblins dared to take a deep breath. But the big cold sweat on his forehead almost flowed down like tears. Richard stepped closer, the blood everywhere made him frown slightly, but that was all. After several battles, his psychological endurance has undergone a qualitative leap. He is adapting to the world in a super strong state. Eyes fixed on the desert goblin in front of him. Where did you come from? Why did you attack my army? The few people who were questioned said with trembling voices. Great Lord, we are also forced to help. Those temple guards have seized our territory and expelled us. We need food. Need to use food to shoot mummies. What kind of brain circuit is this? Li Cha was stunned for a long time. You are also not shy about meat and vegetables. However, the temple guard mentioned by the other party intrigued him. Is this a copy or a mission? Temple guards. Is there a temple there? Yes, master, there is a very terrifying temple. Where is that? When a few desert goblins heard this, they were instantly frightened, their bodies trembled uncontrollably, and their eyes were full of fear. They are too terrifying, all our clansmen have been killed. Do not talk nonsense. The desert goblin was startled and said quickly. Yes, in our territory, it's half a sun away from here. What half the sun? Li Cha wanted to slap these guys to death. How many people are there? What is the strength? I don't know, they are too strong, all the clansmen they encountered are dead. What does the temple look like? We just glanced at it from a long distance, and we don't know. Li Cha shook his head, these greenskins are really trashy snacks, even the clan has been wiped out and they still don't know the situation of the enemy. To be able to escape, it all depends on fetters, right? I was too lazy to ask again. Lead the way. These words immediately made the goblin's face bitter. Reading www.uikanshu.com. But under the strong pressure of the mummy, he could only nod his head. One of them pursed his dry lips. Great master, do you have water? Li Cha took out a wooden bucket full of water from the system space. Watching the 20 goblins gurgling dry. After drinking, the desert goblin who was just listless immediately became alive and began to lead the way. While walking, he told Li Cha how terrifying those temple guards were, trying desperately to stop him from exploring. Naturally, he didn't bother to pay attention, but from the intermittent words of these guys, he got a lot of information. These desert goblins are natives, not recruits from the troop lair, they have lived in the area for decades. The temple suddenly appeared a few days ago, and then the area was occupied by the guards of the temple. Not to mention that the opponent's strength is strong, and the number is extremely large. Hundreds of goblins were slaughtered by the opponent's team. The more he talked, the more curious Richard became. This seems to be a high-level field army base. If you capture it, you don't know what good things you can get from it. With a bit of excitement, Richard urged the goblin to speed up. I have to say that the goblin's instinct to be greedy for life and fear of death is really powerful. Under their leadership, they did not encounter other wild troops along the way. However, with the temptation of the temple, Richard didn't have the heart to pay attention to the others. Nearly 40 minutes later, I saw the goblin leading the way pointing at a large bush not far away in fear. Great Master, that temple is inside. Li Cha was shocked. The bushes in front of you can't see the edge at a glance, and the range is quite wide. This is a rare green site in the desert. There is a source of water in the bushes, that's why we live here all the time. The temple is right in the middle of the bush. Great Master, you must be careful, those temple guards are too powerful. Let's you outside. Hearing the goblin muttering, Richard gave these guys an angry look. Come in with us. These green-skinned beings suddenly had a bitter face. But he didn't dare to say anything, he could only stand aside in dejection. After thinking for a while, Li Cha selected 5 goblins, and sent 4 mummies to explore the path at the same time. You go find a safe way to the temple. The son of a daughter does not sit in a dangerous hall, and with so many troops under his command, naturally he can't take risks. The 5 selected goblins were about to cry. Li Cha glared at these guys angrily. The 5 of you, after you have found a safe path, you can stay outside. Next time you have a mission, you will send other people there. A few goblins barely recovered their spirits. Compared with the unknown missions that other goblins may encounter, it seems that finding a way is nothing. Anyway, they run fast. Immediately, he tiptoed his short body and walked into the bushes with the mummy in a very comical manner. Li Cha didn't speak, and waited patiently. 20 minutes later. Learn about So-So. There was a sound of footsteps in the bushes, but the mummy who was on guard ahead did not warn. After a while, several goblins excitedly appeared in front of Li Cha. Master, we have found a safe passage to the temple. Li Cha glanced at the mummies behind the goblin, but the other party showed no objection. Then he was relieved that mummies were 10 times more reliable than these green-skinned beings. The goblins left a small team waiting here, and the others followed me to the temple. The 5 of you are responsible for managing the order here. Before I come back, no one is allowed to leave. If someone wants to run away, the 5 of you can execute them on the spot. The 5 goblins who were named were immediately very excited. They glanced triumphantly at the few companions beside them, and raised their heads. Great Master, we will definitely be optimistic about other people. Richard nodded and said nothing. He let the mummies go first, and then he followed into the bushes. Too many people can easily lead to confusion. While the goblins with a small team are easy to manage, they can also act as cannon fodder in the event of an accident. This bush is very tall, some dense bushes are 2 or 3 meters high, so there is no need to worry about exposure. Fortunately, the bushes grow in clumps, and there is a certain interval between each clump, and they are not connected into a single piece. At most, it will be a little winding, and it will not be too difficult. Under the leadership of the mummy, the speed of progress is not slow. But in order to prevent accidents, Richard still lowered his speed. In the winding bushes, if there is a map, it is easy to get lost. One of the characteristics of the territory attribute of Dusk City is that residents will not get lost in the desert, and this characteristic plays a huge role at this time. Li Cha felt that his mind was extraordinarily clear and he was not confused. 10 minutes later, the mummy who was leading the way stopped. A few goblins also felt something, and they kept their mouths tightly shut and dared not make a sound. Even their legs are shaking. Li Cha signaled the 2 mummies to take good care of the goblins, and he walked forward under the of the other mummies. After walking about 50 meters, he gently opened the bushes in front of him, and his vision suddenly opened up. In front of them was a clearing overgrown with yellowish dwarf grass. In the central area of the open space, there is a big tree more than 20 meters high with umbrella-shaped leaves. Large trees cover extremely wide locations, casting huge shadows on the ground. And under this towering tree, a quaint temple appeared in sight. There are 9 giant stone pillars erected in front of this temple, and each stone pillar is carved with ancient deities. Colorful. The aura that exudes makes people feel inexplicably extremely odd. Behind the stone pillar, the temple that occupies the shadow of the big tree opened its door, and there was a faint light of torches shining inside. I can't see the specific situation clearly, but it gives a particularly mysterious feeling. In front of the temple, 4 teams of temple guards stood tightly, and 40 people blocked the surrounding area. These temple guards wear black armor inscribed with sphinxes. In his hand, he held a strange weapon with a curved front end like a machete and a straight handle. Wearing a pointed hat with 2 colorful ties floating on his head. Li Cha hid his figure and silently opened the properties panel. Dark Temple. Question mark question mark question mark. Question mark question mark question mark. Question mark question mark question mark. It turned out to be full of question marks. Unwilling, he looked at the guard next to him. The next second, the pupils shrank suddenly. Enkum Temple Guard. Level 8, Intermediate Arms. Strength increases by 15%. Potential, Rare 3 stars. Skill, Temple Guard, A level. As the guardian of the temple, they have obtained the protection of the gods. Within 100 meters of the temple, the strength is increased by 200%, and the recovery speed of physical strength and injury is increased by 200%. Temple Blessing, A level. After being killed, as long as the corpse is placed in the temple, it can be resurrected after a day. Body of Faith Class B, UU reading www.uakanshu.com. Immune to mind control, immune to curse, immune to plague, immune to poison, magic damage reduced by 60%. Battle Hymn of Courage Class B, morale never drops, all attributes increase by 70% in the face of enemies who invade the temple. Combat Master Class B, proficient in various combat techniques. Racial talent. When fighting within 100 meters of the temple, all attributes will increase by 50%. Bound Temple. Within 200 meters of the temple, all attributes are increased by 10%. 20% increase in all attributes within 100 meters of the temple. Within 50 meters of the temple, all attributes are increased by 30%. Introduction. A unit born to guard the temple. Good guy. Li Cha even subconsciously slowed down his breathing. The level is as high as 8, and the potential has reached the rare 3 stars of horror. The extremely powerful skills made him feel enormous pressure. The potential of the bandage mummy is elite 3 stars, and it can only reach the rare level after being promoted, and the rare level can only become rare after being promoted. It is a full 2 steps away from the temple guards. And the opponent's level is as high as level 8. The level of difficulty in Era of Radiance increases exponentially, and the level of the gods given in the official background information is -30. The gods are only level 30, so it is conceivable how high the gold content of level 8 is at the beginning of the game. And the number of temple guards is only as many as 4 teams outside. I'm afraid there are only more or less troops hidden inside. It is very likely that there are more than 1 squadron, that is, hundreds of people. What is the origin of this dark temple, so that a squadron of rare troops can come to protect it? If this is attacked, wouldn't it be possible to get rich? Li Cha reluctantly glanced at the temple and waved his hand. Withdraw. Without the slightest hesitation, he turned and left the bush. Although the temple is very tempting, you can definitely get extremely precious treasures by capturing it. But at this stage, the gap between the 2 sides is still too big. I'm afraid that even if 100, no, 1,000 or 10,000 players join forces, they won't be able to capture it. Around the temple, the combat power of these guards will be invincible to players for a long time to come. Owner. When the goblin saw Richard's return, he was relieved, and excitedly stepped forward to say hello. Li Cha waved his hand. Leave here first. He didn't feel relieved until he got away from the bushes. Looked at the goblin and asked, "Are there any temple-like buildings around?" The goblin shook his head again and again. "No, only the temple." "What about other field troops?" "Every dusk, the guards in the temple will leave the temple. The surrounding life has been slaughtered." "What about resource points like the lumber mill?" "Yes, but it's also within the patrol range of the temple guards." Li Cha couldn't help shaking his head, dismissing the idea of occupying a nearby resource point. Not to mention the temple, this place is indeed a little far from the City of Dusk. Glancing at the system time, it was already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know what happened to the cursed knack trolls at this time. After thinking about it, he didn't stay any longer. He turned around and walked back with the goblin and mummy. But this time, I didn't let the goblin lead the way. Just like before, I scattered the mummy and searched in a fan shape. The goblins also joined the exploration team. In this way, a few wild arms gathering places were really discovered. Ding! You commanded the troops to exterminate a group of sawtooth black rats, gained 20 experience points, and obtained a micro-resource bag. Ding! You commanded the troops to exterminate a group of sharp-clawed sand rabbits and gained 15 experience points. Ding! You commanded the troops to destroy a group of black-backed halflings, gained 20 experience points, and obtained a micro-resource bag. On average, you can encounter a group of field troops in about 10 minutes. However, the ranks of these units are not high, and they did not get any good things. But the biggest harvest is that the wild monsters hunted, the sawtooth black rat and the sharp-clawed sand rabbit are edible. This made Richard quite happy, and he directly asked the desert goblins to carry it back. In these wild arms gathering places, he got a similar treasure resource bag from the treasure chest he opened before. Resource bag. Level, miniature. Feature, after opening, you can get a small amount of resources randomly. Introduction, you can open it and try it, otherwise, how do you know it's a waste of time to open this thing? Lee Cha twitched at the corners of his mouth when he looked at the cheap profile. After opening it, the two resource bags obtained, one gave 100 gold coins, and the other gave 100 units of stone. It's better than nothing. However, it is a little regrettable that he did not find a troop nest in these field troop strongholds. After going around like this, I came across a few wild arms gathering places. When the sun slanted westward, Richard returned to the place where he met the Nake troll this morning. Let the goblin carrying the prey stay in the distance and wait, he brought the mummy slowly from the sand dune downwind to the troll. After climbing the dunes, the picture that appeared in front of him almost made Richard burst out laughing. I saw that in the bushes in the distance, the knack giants with tough defenses like rocks were lying on the ground one by one, and the dark blue on their skin became very conspicuous. Although the Nake troll was trying hard to stand up, no matter how hard the hands behind him were, it couldn't do it. They have been drained of all power. The humming of the desert bees flying in the sky at this time became more and more impatient, and seemed to be crying for their partners. Richard opened the Properties panel and found that a new line of properties appeared. Knack Troll. Level 3. Potential, Elite 3 stars. Status, Dying, Cursed. Skill, Rock Solid, All-Out Punch. He was meticulous about every detail, and checked all the Nake trolls in the 3 teams. Without exception, they all fell into a state of near death. The mummy is the eternal god. Satisfied, he nodded and waved his hand. You go and end the lives of these trolls. Roar! There was a hoarse growl in his throat, and the bandaged mummy walked forward excitedly. Sha. The footsteps stepped on the sand making a unique sound, and gradually approached. The Nake troll noticed the strangeness and couldn't help turning his head to see that the culprit was coming, and these hideous beings immediately fell into anger. There was a tearing roar in his throat, and he put his hands on the ground, trying to stand up. But they tried their best, but couldn't hold up the huge body. The bandaged mummy didn't hesitate, rustled and rushed forward, stabbed with sharp claws like lightning. The troll groaned and waved his arms violently, clanging. The sound of metal collision sounded. He barely blocked the blow. Mummy's imposing manner froze. She dodged, her arms raised high, her body arched like a spring that was depressed to the extreme, and then suddenly burst out. Huh! The sharp claws tore down, and a violent sound of breaking through the air sounded, stabbing the monster's throat. Kacha. Puff. The troll who could not make a second resistance suffered a fatal blow in the weakness of the curse. The blood formed a huge pressure after pressing the faucet with the hand, and it splattered. One after another. The level is as high as 4, the elite is 3 stars, and the defensive power is almost perverted by the mummies. When the last troll dies, the system prompts it to arrive as promised. Ding! The army you led slaughtered a group of knack trolls and won a mini battle. You gained 60 experience points. Lee Cha was overjoyed, got up and came to the mummy's side. The surrounding ground is full of the corpses of the trolls, and after getting close, you can feel the horror of these ferocious troops. That strong body is only afraid that a single punch can kill a calf. If it is tough, the bandage mummy can at least double to eat it, and it needs to be matched with the desertification skill, otherwise 3 times will be enough. Sure enough, the brain is the most powerful weapon. Buzzing. Stimulated by the sudden appearance of strangers, the swarms of bees in the low sky began to fly wildly, and the sound suddenly increased like a plane flying overhead. A bit of excitement rose in Li Cha's eyes. These bees are his trophies. Don't know how the honey in the desert tastes. Following the flight path of the bees to another bush, Yu reading www.uakanshu.com easily found the hive hidden in the middle. Although there is only one litter, there are quite a few. The densely packed large area can cause 10,000 real damage to those with intensive phobia. Open the attribute panel. The attributes of the honeycomb immediately appear in front of you. Desert bee. Level, special. Queen bee beginner promoted to the intermediate queen, can brew better quality intermediate honey. Characteristics, it can produce desert honey with a special fragrance, which can greatly speed up the recovery of physical strength and injuries after eating. Minimum weekly output, 8 units. Introduction, a rare bee in the desert, extremely rare. Special item. After seeing the attributes of desert bees, Li Cha's eyes lit up. Once the word special appears, it often means that it has special characteristics, is extremely rare and extremely precious. This can also be seen from the introduction of honey. After eating, it can greatly restore physical strength and injuries. This is simply absolute. Isn't this an alchemy potion? And it is naturally produced. More importantly, the quality of honey can also be improved. The queen bee is now at the primary level, and when it is upgraded to the intermediate level, the quality of the honey will also be improved to the intermediate level. Apart from the intermediate level, is there an advanced level? Premium. How much will the attributes increase by then? The elixir of immortality. The dead and the bones. Live a second life. Richard laughed. Thinking of this, I couldn't hold back the joy in my heart. At this moment, the black gold system suddenly popped up a prompt. Desert Beet Special can consume 10 nests of insect troops to increase the queen bee level. Can the hive also consume troop nests to increase the level? Richard was greatly surprised. Sure enough, an open life is perfect. Open the trading market with a little curiosity. Search the nest of insect troops. Giant ant lair common 1 star 400 coins. Side wasp lair common 2 star, sells for 500 units of wood. Venom locust lair normal 1 star 400 units of iron ore. Li Cha searched around and found that the price of troop nests has generally risen a bit. Yesterday, the cheapest 300 units of resources could be purchased, but today it has risen to 400 or 500 units, and some units with strong combat effectiveness have even sold for thousands of units. Obviously, many lords, like him, have gone out to explore and have new income. The purchasing power of resources begins to decline. And with the passage of time, players will know which arms are strong and which arms are weak. The price difference between the different arms will be even greater. Fortunately, he doesn't need those good troop nests to upgrade, as long as they meet the same type. Unfortunately, the treasure of spring water fragments can't be synthesized yet, otherwise, the sand jujube forest can be placed. When the time comes, put the desert bees in the jujube forest and let the bees pick flowers directly. This process is perfect. Quote. Li Cha glanced at the hive a few times, but was not in a hurry to move. It wasn't that he was afraid of being stung into a pig's head by those irritable bees. The main reason is that it is only 10 minutes away from the territory, and there is no place to put it in Dusk City. When everything is ready, move them, and it is not too late to upgrade the level. After thinking for a while, he looked at the desert goblin who had just approached. The goblin followed the 2 mummies back to the territory first. The residents asked, "You told them that I went to the resource point to inspect and I will be back soon." Quote. The resource points occupied yesterday have already been harvested today. Yes, master. The goblins responded excitedly immediately. The prey that had been carried for so long almost didn't exhaust them to death, so it was a sure thing to be able to go back early. After the 2 mummies returned to the territory with the desert goblins, the residents boiled again when they saw the abundant prey. One by one was elated. Gods are above, the Lord must have been favored by the goddess of luck. These prey are so fat. Can I eat meat again tonight? I'm so happy. Praise the Lord. A few days ago, they fled to this territory in panic. At that time, there were only a few days of food left, and everyone was full of despair for the future. But yesterday, after the Lord appeared, everything changed. His eyes were so deep, and his firm words filled them with power. His actions were so decisive, the piles of prey gave them an unprecedented sense of security. This is the Lord of their dreams. Praise the City of Dusk, praise Mr. Richard. Richard took the 12 mummies to the lumber mill first, and collected the results of the long-armed hard work that day. The maximum output of the small logging farm is 2,100 units per week, which is 300 units per day, and after the long-armed hard worker is motivated by him, the efficiency increases by 20% within 3 days. So the harvest is 360 units of wood. Micro quarry yields 200 units, plus 20% is 40 units, for a total of 240 units. Small iron ore is the same as the lumber mill, 360 units. Sawmill. Today, the 3 resource points produced a total of 960 units of resources. The current resource details are: gold coins, 1440 units. Timber, 1900 units. Stone, 2280 units. Steel, 2,360 units. Half an hour later, Li Cha returned to the territory contentedly. Good night, Lord, you have worked hard. The kitchen has prepared dinner for you, you can also take a hot bath first. The gray-haired Kuru waited early on the edge of the territory and greeted him respectfully after seeing him. Li Cha nodded slightly. After entering the territory, I saw residents who were still busy handling their prey. How many units of food can today's prey produce? No statistics yet. Kuru apologized a little. You rest first, I will report to you as soon as I finish the process. Out of the corner of his light, Li Cha saw the desert goblins who were hanging aside a little bewildered. Waved his hand. Arrange the goblins to go to the barracks to rest, and they will be managed by you in the future. After speaking, he ignored the rest and returned to the Lord's mansion with the mummy. At night, mummies that don't need rest are the best guards. Reading www.uakanshu.com. Inside the mansion, 2 cooks rearranged by Kuru had already prepared dinner for him. Li Cha looked at the majesty of the 2 cooks whose clothes could barely cover them, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Especially the trembling when the other party served the food made him wonder if Kuru did it on purpose. After sending the 2 overly plump cooks away, Richard enjoyed a hearty dinner with peace of mind. Wild wolf meat, hare, gerbil. These meats are of extremely high quality and delicious. Outside the Lord's mansion, Kuru was a little unwilling to see the 2 cooks with their heads bowed and looking like they had done something wrong. Lord, do you really have no hint at all? Seeing the 2 shaking their heads in unison, he couldn't help sighing. Alas. It seems that the Lord doesn't like your type, but it's okay, you didn't get kicked out like the 2 girls yesterday. Come down, you will serve the Lord for the past few days. Remember, no matter what the Lord wants, you must give it. Since this is your choice, do it well. We are helpless and must find a strong enough backer. Judging from these 2 days, Lord is a rare candidate. If you are accepted by the Lord, it will be a good thing for everyone. Besides, the Lord is so handsome. The faces of the 2 cooks turned slightly red. We know. In fact, they snatched the opportunity to serve the Lord from more than a dozen competitors. Li Cha was unaware of the scene outside the Lord's mansion. After finishing the meal, he began to calculate the resources in his hand and the gains of the 2 days. It has been 2 days since I came to Era of Radiance, and these 2 days can be regarded as a lot of harvest. The first is food. At present, there are more than 3,000 units of meat and about 500 units of ordinary food in stock. Counting today's prey, the inventory can be increased by thousands of units. This directly alleviates the food shortage problem in Dusk City, and there will be no shortage of food for at least the next month. The second point is the troop nest, which is the foundation of the territory. He already has an elite 3-star lair in his hands, and the bandaged mummy he recruited is extremely powerful. When paired with his desertification talent, it has the effect of 1 + 1 more than 3. When choosing arms in the future, you can continue to develop towards this type. The third point is resources. At present, he has occupied 3 resource points, and can have a stable income of 8 or 900 resources every day. The existing resources in hand add up to more than 7,000 units. Even if it's not rich, it's not bad. The 4th point is external exploration. In the west left pointing arrow found a temple with a strong guard force. In the future, the City of Dusk will be powerful, and capturing this temple will surely yield an enviable harvest. Obtained a nest of extremely rare desert bees near the logging farm, which can be reared later. After carefully calculating the harvest, Li Cha felt very comfortable. After a long time, he focused his attention on the unit's nest. Upgrading the Great Pyramid of Elite 3-star to Rare 3-star requires 100 troops nests. According to the current price, it requires 40,000 units of resources, and there is a 7-day cooldown, so it is unlikely to upgrade in a short time, already. And to upgrade an ordinary level nest to an elite level, only 10 troop nests and 4,000 units of resources are needed. I use all the resources in my hand to invest in new troops, and I can directly obtain a new elite level troops nest. And if it's not enough, you can sell part of the food in exchange for resources. First explode a wave of soldiers with the resources in hand. Strength is the foundation of standing in this world. After clarifying his thoughts, Li Cha immediately took action. Open the market. Search. Desert Camp Troops. Desert Scout Normal 3-star. Sells for 1,000 units of wood. Desert Halfling Common 1-star. Sells for 500 units of wood. Carrion Hyena Normal 2-star. Sells for 6,000 units of iron ore. Li Cha carefully checked the attributes of these troop nests, but most of them were immediately ruled out by him. The bandaged mummy performed so well on the battlefield that it became his reference standard. Moreover, he also has to consider whether these arms are compatible with his desertification skills, consider logistical issues, and consider whether it can cooperate with the mummy. More importantly, what is the potential? Is it worth spending a lot of resources to cultivate? Under a series of screening conditions, after a full 2 hours, Richard eliminated tens of thousands of troops nests before he settled on one. Scorpion Den. Level, Ordinary 3 stars. Recruitable troops, Scorpion Warrior, Ordinary 3 stars. Number of recruits, 14. Weekly production, 7. Recruitment conditions, 4 gold coins, 4 units of wood, 4 units of steel. Introduction, an ordinary desert troop lair. This troop lair sells for up to 3,000 units of iron ore. The properties of the Scorpion Warrior it produced made him quite moved. Scorpion Warrior. Level 1. Potential, normal 3 stars. Skill, Body of the Undead, F grade. Physical damage reduced by 15%. Immune to plague and poison. As long as the head is not cut off, it will not die. Venomous Scorpion Tail, F level. The scorpion tail can cause armor-piercing damage, and at the same time, it is poisonous. After being stabbed, it will cause poisonous damage. Giant Force Iron Pincers, F rank. Double pincer sharpness increases by 15%. Strength increases by 15% when attacking. Racial talent, when fighting in the desert, the strength is increased by 30%. Bound Scorpion, when the number of scorpions is greater than 10, the power of all scorpions is increased by 10%, and the toxicity is increased by 10%. When the number of scorpions is greater than 20, the strength is increased by 20%, and the toxicity is increased by 20%. When the number of scorpions is greater than 30, the strength is increased by 30%, and the toxicity is increased by 30%. Introduction, the undead life sealed in the Pharaoh's Pyramid. I believe you will not be willing to be stung by it. The potential is an ordinary 3-star level, and it has 3 skills, each of which is practical. And there is another point that he appreciates very much, the Scorpion Warrior is an undead life, and there is no need to consider logistical issues. Although the bandage mummy is excellent, it also has a big weakness, a slight lack of attack methods. Poisonous Scorpion Warriors have powerful attack skills, and their attributes are already very good at this time. Once they are promoted, they will definitely get a greater improvement. After thinking about it, Richard searched again and confirmed that this was the only lair of the Scorpion Warrior. Don't hesitate to buy directly. After consuming 3,000 units of iron ore, this column was immediately cleared, so he had to exchange several hundred units for other resources. Continue to search for the troop lair. But this time it's synthetic. Reading www.uikanshu.com. As long as it belongs to the desert camp, how can it be so cheap? After purchasing 10 troop nests, it was a coincidence. The resources of more than 7,000 units that had just started were all emptied. A series of zeros on the properties panel. The Scorpion Warrior's lair needs 400 units of wood, 400 units of stone, and 400 units of iron ore. At this moment, Li Cha was out of a little supplies. Helpless help her forehead. It's too poor. It's still enough to sell food. I don't know what the price of food is now. Opened the trading market, and in the next second, Li Cha's pupils shrank suddenly. 100 units of wheat, 2,000 units of iron ore. 50 units of fresh fish, sells for 1,500 units of wood. 10 boars, sold for 400 GP. The price of food is so high. Each unit of meat can be exchanged for 30 to 40 units of resources, and as long as it hangs up, it will be empty in seconds. Wheat and rice are also priced at around 20 units. Li Cha took a few glances and thought of the thousands of units of meat in the warehouse. At this time, there is a sense of the harvest of windfall. It turns out that food is the most valuable harvest these days. Thousands of units of meat can be sold for 30,000 to 40,000 units of resources. With today's harvest, the meat in the warehouse definitely exceeds 4,000 units. This is an amazing wealth. If you sell them all, you can even raise the mummy's pyramid and the newly acquired scorpion's lair to the rare level without considering the 7-day cooldown. But unfortunately, only part of the food can be sold, and the food in Dusk City is too tight, so there is not much to spare. Hundreds of people eat, drink and Lhasa every day, as well as 30 long-armed hard workers and 20 desert goblins. In a harsh environment like the desert, each person consumes at least 2 units of food per day. The warehouse looks wealthy, but it's good not to buy food from outside. Li Cha shook his head. The current stock of food can last for more than 10 days, which is too little for a territory, making him extremely insecure. If something changes, Dusk City can't afford it at all. I have a plan in my mind. At this stage, hunting is undoubtedly more beneficial than occupying resource points. In the short term, hunting can be the main goal of going out to explore. While thinking about it, he got up and walked out of the Lord's mansion and came to the well. The inhabitants at this time have just finished processing today's prey. Li Cha directly took 200 units of food in exchange for 8,000 units of resources. The gold coins, wood, stone, and iron ore were exchanged for an average of 2,000 units. After encouraging the hardworking residents, he turned around and returned to the mansion. He placed the scorpion's nest that he just got next to the Great Pyramid. Select build. In an instant, 1,600 units of resources were consumed. At the same time, the troop nest he placed on the ground began to expand like a balloon. In a moment, it became a 3-meter-high earthen house. The exterior of the earthen house is all painted with ancient yellow soil, with the pattern of a scorpion's body and human face embossed on it, and the thick hay at the top forms a special pattern spread over the building. This building looks like an ancient building dug out of the earth, with an inexplicable sense of mystery. Poisonous Scorpion Lair, 3-star ordinary, consuming 10 ordinary desert camp troops lair cores can raise it to 3-star elite. The conditions have been met. Is it improved? The prompt of the black gold system arrived as promised. After choosing to confirm, the 10 troop nests in the hand were directly shattered, turned into light and merged into the poisonous scorpion nest. A gray light floated. Under the blessing of mysterious power, the relief of the human-faced scorpion in front of the poisonous scorpion's lair became more and more striking. The attributes panel changed after the light retreated. Scorpion Den. Level, Elite 3 stars. Recruitable troops, Scorpion Warrior, Elite 3 star. Number of recruits, 14. Weekly production, 7. Recruitment conditions, 40 gold coins, 40 units of wood, 40 units of iron ore. Introduction, a common desert troop lair. Update successed. Li Cha was in a very happy mood. However, the resources required for recruitment have also increased significantly. Unfortunately, there is a 7-day cooldown after each unit's lair is promoted. Otherwise, if you sell more food, you can directly upgrade it to the rare level. Recruiting a Scorpion Warrior requires 120 units of resources, 14 is 1680 units. All recruited. At the moment of choice, a gray energy lingered in the poisonous scorpion's lair. After a while, those energies began to pour into the relief in front of the scorpion's lair. The relief began to fill up gradually, as if filled with flesh and blood, and then gradually came to life. When the energy was condensed to a certain level, the relief suddenly opened his eyes. He took a step forward, broke away from the wall of the poisonous scorpion's nest, and stood firmly on the ground. This scene is extremely cool, like a scene in a fairy tale. Li Cha nodded in satisfaction. The poisonous scorpion warrior is 2 meters tall, with a human upper body and a poisonous scorpion body at the bottom. The muscles on his body are like forged steel, and the outline is extremely obvious. The long scorpion tail is countless times sharper than the spear. The arms are not human hands, but 2 scorpion pincers shining with cold light. Kacha kacha. As long as they are closed, the crisp sound of metal friction will be heard immediately. No one can doubt the terrifying lethality of these 2 iron pincers. After the iron pliers are closed, a butcher-like iron hook is exposed at the front end. Even if the iron pliers are not opened, attacking with the iron hook can still cause exaggerated damage. The most chilling thing was the pair of icy brown pupils of the scorpion warrior that did not have the slightest emotion of life. At first glance, it seems to give people a lot of psychological pressure. With full expectation, Li Cha opened the property panel. Scorpion Warrior. Level 1. Potential, Elite 3 stars. Skill, Body of the Necromancer, F grade. Physical damage reduced by 30%. Immune to plague and poison. As long as the head is not cut off, it will not die. Venomous Scorpion Tail, E level. The scorpion tail can cause armor-piercing damage, and at the same time it is highly poisonous. After being stabbed, it will cause huge poisonous damage. Giant Force Iron Pincers, E rank. Double pincer sharpness increased by 30%, strength increased by 30% when attacking. Racial talent. When fighting in the desert, the strength is increased by 30%. Bound Scorpion. When the number of scorpions is greater than 10, the power of all scorpions is increased by 10%, and the toxicity is increased by 10% activated. If the number is greater than 20, the strength is increased by 20%, and the toxicity is increased by 20%. If the number is greater than 30, the strength is increased by 30%, and the toxicity is increased by 30%. Introduction. The undead life sealed in the Pharaoh's pyramid. I believe you will not be willing to be stung by it. Li Cha was in a very happy mood. Sure enough, after the potential increase, the skill level of the Scorpion Warrior has been improved, and the attributes have been greatly enhanced. 14 poisonous scorpion warriors with a height of 2 meters, a pair of tongs and curved scorpion tails stood in front of them neatly, and immediately gave people a strong sense of oppression. This unit is more sassy than the bandage mummy. Master, thank you for giving us new life. The scorpion warriors all held their chests and bowed, and saluted their master with the most respectful gesture. Soldiers recruited from the troop lair, devote eternal death to their masters who recruited them. Li Cha nodded slightly. Slowly stretched out his right hand. The light of yellow sand began to rise in the palm of the hand, like a storm blown by a strong wind into the sand. Then all the rays of light poured into the body of the scorpion warrior. Ding! With your blessing, 14 scorpion warriors have mastered part of the power of the desert and acquired a new skill, Desertification, D level. When the light faded, Richard opened their attribute panel in battle, and the desertification skill had already appeared on it. The characteristic of sandification's immunity to 99% physical damage is matched with the powerful attack power of the scorpion warrior. Li Cha was excited when he thought about that scene. Isn't this the opening of Wushuang? When he encounters a field army like the Nake Troll again, he can completely pass it. Li Cha is in a good mood. As such, he has 2 elite-level troop nests in his hands. The Great Pyramid, which can recruit elite 3-star bandage mummies, is good at cursing, can greatly reduce the enemy's attributes, and can even cause the enemy to be cursed to death. Poisonous Scorpion Lair, can recruit elite 3-star poisonous scorpion warriors, has strong attack power, is good at tough battles and frontal attacks. The total number of the 2 arms is 28, and the strength of nearly 3 squads. This is only the second day of entering this world, and the future can be expected. After letting the scorpion warrior and the bandaged mummy stand guard together, Richard returned to the lobby and habitually opened the chat channel. 2 days have passed, and I don't know how the other lords are doing now. I attacked a small logging farm today and encountered an elite 3-star monster. I was killed by a husky. Why are there elite monsters in a small logging farm? I don't have any troops left, I'm giving them away. You may not believe it. Today I met a caravan of NPCs, the Aborigines. You haven't seen them. Those Aborigines use the land to transport supplies. That's a rare class of troops. I envy my eyes. Famous. What's the one upstairs? The NPC caravan I met was planning to do business with me, but there were no specialties in my territory, so the other party took a look and left. Bah, this is blatant discrimination. HMPH, these fools, I'll let them know. 30 years of Hedong, 30 years of Hexi. Don't bully young poor. Quote. How can I get food? My population has exceeded 300. But my mother's heart can't afford it. For the first time, I know that 300 people eat and consume so much food every day. Who can lend me some food? I promise, I will pay it back when I develop tenfold. Quote. Ha ha ha, I finally have an elite level troop lair. I used half of the territory's population as cannon fodder, and finally captured that field troop stronghold. But it doesn't seem to be anything to be happy about. The residents have all run away because of this, motherfooler, it's been too hard these days. Dog days game plan, don't let me know where you are. Why do you want to develop such a dehumanizing game? The residents of my territory rebelled because they were starved for a day. Didn't you just not eat for a day? Why are you rebelling? Rebellion is rebelling, and my territory has been looted. Can these days pass? It's so difficult. Why is this world so difficult? In the end, how can we manage the territory? Lack of food, lack of water, lack of resources, and there are powerful field troops in the wild outside, like scolding mother. Li Cha watched for a long time and found that most of the players had a very hard life. There are only a handful of them who are barely able to live, but there are also many problems. In comparison, the city of Dusk is too comfortable. In just 2 days, he has already established a firm foothold in the desert, a place where life is forbidden. Although food is not abundant and water scarcity is still in sight, it is countless times better than the miserable lives of other lords. After looking at it for a while, he suddenly thought of something. He took out 2 treasures of resources that were exchanged for 800 units of food, the sand jujube forest and spring water fragments. 10 acres of sand jujube forests mature once a month. There is no doubt that the sooner this stable food source is planted, the better. Although hunting is highly profitable, it is unstable. This is not a long-term development plan for the territory. The problem is that the jujube forest must have enough water for irrigation. And there is only 1 piece of spring water. How can I get the other 2 pieces? It's obviously not realistic to open the treasure chest by yourself. You still have to buy it from other players. Li Cha had an idea as his thoughts turned. On the premise of ensuring the consumption of Dusk City, you can take out a part of the food in exchange for the spring water treasure fragments, and start the planting of 10 acres of sand jujube forest as soon as possible. A jujube forest that can stably produce food is of great significance to the city of Dusk in the desert. Deserts are not fertile places, and stable food production is a great guarantee. Twilight City can't always rely on hunting to solve its food problem. When the population is small, hunting can be done, but when the population grows to 3,000 or 4,000 or even tens of thousands, how many prey must be hunted every day to satisfy? If a territory wants to develop, it must farm. After Richard made a decision, Karu was called. Without waiting for the other party to salute, he immediately asked. Kalu, after today's prey is processed, do we still have a unit of food? Karuna's slightly cloudy eyes looked directly at Richard, and her voice was aged with a weather-beaten composure. Lord Richard, after today's prey is processed, there are still 1,300 units of meat left, plus 3,200 units of meat in the warehouse, a total of 4,500 units. But there will be a lot of loss when these fresh meats are dried into jerky. Also, we originally had 500 units of coarse wheat left. All the food added up can support the consumption of the territory for half a month, and some savings can last for 20 days. Li Cha narrowed his eyes slightly. Half a month's inventory, this data is far from enough for a territory, and the ability to resist risks is too weak. But for the early stage when development opportunities are valuable, there is no need to save so much, and some development can be taken out. A buffer of 10 days is enough. After having a plan in mind, he immediately got up and went to the warehouse of the Lord's mansion. All supplies in the city of Dusk are stored here. Kuru also arranged for a few people to guard him day and night. Li Cha took 1,000 units of fresh meat from the warehouse, and posted information about the reward in the reward area of the trading market. 1,000 units of fresh meat reward resource treasure, spring water or spring water fragments *2. This information immediately appeared in the first and second places in the reward area. UU reading www.uakanshu.com. The bounty areas are arranged in order of value. Obviously, the system concluded that his 1,000 units of fresh meat were worth more than everyone's bounty. In such a huge market, there are countless bounty materials. However, this is the first time I have seen a resource treasure that uses food, and it is also a meat reward, and this shot is 1,000 units of meat. This made the eyes of many lords who were in short supply immediately redden with envy. He quickly started talking on the chat channel. I just saw a big guy named Chingcho who directly hung up 1,000 units of meat in exchange for a treasure of garbage resources. What do you think this spring water is used for? The water in my territory flows out every day. I can't afford it. Why only exchange for treasures? With 1,000 units of meat, I've been able to feed the residents of the territory for 10 days. A bowl of broth a day isn't to die for. People are more dead than people. The first shot is 1,000 units of meat. This is just the beginning. Who is so generous? This is the first time I've seen such a local tyrant. What kind of life does this big guy named Chingcho live? Why can someone have so much food at this stage? I'm not convinced. Why can I only eat porridge today? These two pieces of information immediately caused a large number of players who were short of food to cry. When they were still worrying about food, some people took so much food, or meat, in exchange for a treasure such as spring water, which was to many people, making them envious, jealous. Thanks for watching.